Well, hello and welcome to the lecture on theoretical perspectives on management control. And I would like to start the lecture with a important clarification that you might get confused if you start reading on the topic and you start seeing like there are different concepts and different words, but maybe they mean the same thing. So this is what I want to clarify in here. We are using the concept of management control for the whole module, so we will try to call it management control most of the time. But when you read the articles or when you discuss with colleagues or with, I don't know, practitioners, maybe they can use other words that in the end refer to the same thing. For example, management accounting, organizational control, management accounting and control. It's a bit strange, but in the literature and also in practice, sometimes people tend to use different words for the same thing. So everything that we will discuss today in this lecture is related to management control. We just want to be consistent with the same topic, so we will use management control in the lecture and I think in the whole module. But when you read it, you will read like management accounting, and you are like, is it the same thing or is it different? So the suggestion or what I think you should do is to try to read what they mean. Generally, the literature that we will give you, it's referring to the same concept, the idea of controlling in a way, but try to read and reflect if the articles really mean that. And I included this picture because I think it's a good analogy. Like uh, everywhere in the world, football is football, but in the US, it's called soccer, and football is American football. Is what we understand as American football, but for them, football is something different. So it's more or less the same thing. Soccer and football is the same sport, just different words in different contexts. But let's move forward then with the lecture. And in this lecture, we'll try to understand different theoretical perspectives on management control. But for that, I would like to go to the kind of a history lesson on management control, because the idea or kind of the uh, like the baseline idea of management control in a historical perspective is that it emerged kind of organically with civilization. Like as civilization became more complex, management control emerged because there was a need to plan, to control, to assess. Also, language evolved, and then language was used also to plan and to control and all of these elements. So it was kind of a linear relationship between the complexity of civilization and the development of management control. And it kind of emerged first like as a need. It was like we need to make sure that we have enough resources. There is a lot of uncertainty. So that's why it kind of emerged as a need at the beginning. Uh, and here are a few examples. Like for example, this picture over here is we can say is a customer satisfaction control from almost 4,000 years ago, because it's a complaint from a customer regarding the quality of copper. I think it's in the British Museum. So it's one of the earliest ways of controlling customer satisfaction. And then we also have a budget from, I think, Mesopotamian civilization from more than 3,000 years ago. And I think it refers to a kind of government budget on how to, which houses will receive some of the resources. So as you can see, in the very early ages, it was kind of a need. And as you can see in here, if we try to we come back to one of the first lectures also in other courses where we contrasted the different mm, kind of types of accounting, tax accounting, financial accounting, and management accounting. I think at the beginning, management accounting was the most important one because at the beginning, civilization wanted to budget and to plan. And taxes were there, but taxes were much more simple, and financial accounting didn't even exist. So management accounting was the dominant one. And moving forward, management control kept evolving at a similar pace as human evolution. So during the Bronze Age, I already gave you a few examples, but I think maybe budgets were a critical management control tool that was used to allocate resources for different types of activities. And again, it was the most important thing that accounting could provide at that point. But then in the classic age, things became more complex. We saw the construction of big things like the Colosseum. We saw the development of large civilizations. So probably in there, it became a bit more complex. And for example, maybe here is an example that of how management control could have been useful at that time is cost benefit analysis, because these civilizations invested a lot in things that were very expensive, also kind of large and expensive wars. So probably they had to make an assessment on that. And then in the medieval ages, accounting had a huge kind of leap from being very simple with budgets, cost benefit analysis, maybe some planning. We saw customer satisfaction in here. It moved to something more complex with double entry bookkeeping. I don't know if you have ever heard about this person, Fray Luca Pacioli. He was a monk from Italy that developed the double entry bookkeeping, a kind of very complex accounting mechanism that allows us to um find like to kind of register everything, but at the same time to keep a balance to know that we are doing it correctly. I know maybe this is not the lecture to talk about it. You learn it, especially in financial accounting, the first accounting courses. But this was a huge leap in terms of complexity of accounting. So from very simple, it moved to more complex. And as you can see, the complexity emerged as civilization became also more complex. So until now, accounting has only been reactive to the development of civilization. So it only kind of tried to answer to the needs of people. But then, after the medieval ages, then we experience a civilization, a huge jump. We drastically evolve into a much more complex, especially economically and in terms of production, when we experience the Industrial Revolution and then in the modern era where we are living right now. So when we experienced this big jump in the Industrial Revolution, costing became more important. It was more important that budgets and the cost benefit analysis, the double entry bookkeeping was more or less dominated at that time. But then the costing systems became kind of the area of accounting or management control where we could find more innovations. There are many stories in here. For example, Ford company was, here is the example, kind of a leader in terms of how they costed the production of their goods. And because of that, they gained a lot of advantages to their competitors. They were able to kind of innovate in both terms, like in the engineering side, but also in the management control side. So they kind of perform really well. They move forward on these two sides and they overperform with other competitors. And maybe you know, like in the 20th century, that kind of changed to Japan when Japanese car manufacturers improved in the same way like the Americans did 1 century before. They did that in the 20th century when they also kind of improved with their just-in-time productions and linked to just-in-time advancements. They also improved their inventory mechanisms. So as you can see, here we have a huge leap. And then in the last era, what we are experiencing right now is that we are moving beyond budgets and we are moving beyond costs. So now we want to understand and we want to control more than only money. That is more or less kind of a quick summary from history. But I would like to spend a little bit more time on these two eras, Industrial Revolution and the modern era, because I want to show you how big the leap was. Because I mean, we started from here and then we moved to here. And then suddenly in 2 centuries, it seems like we advanced a lot. And that is true. And that is related to the development of our economy. As you can see in here, the global GDP of the world has kind of exponentially grown in the last years. So everything became more complex. Production, financing, taxes, the government mechanisms, everything became more complex. So that's why you can see this big leap in accounting too. And finally, something important to because if you think about it, there was not really like a science of accounting over this period. There was science on production. There was science like engineers were like they kind of wrote books about it. There was a lot of knowledge in all of these developments. In here, the same thing, like Industrial Revolution, it was pushed by engineers and scientists, but there was not really like a science of accounting until this point, until we reached the 20th century. It was until it's not that old, it's probably 120 years old, this idea of accounting as a science. And the first kind of discipline that emerged from accounting was actually management accounting. And it came because the engineers from Ford, they were kind of the first academics in management control. The the practitioners, these engineers from Ford, realized that it was not enough to only advance in the kind of production engineering side. There was also a need to develop the accounting mechanisms to kind of match the development of that. Like before, it was quite easy. It was like there is a new advancement on something that happens once every 100 years, and then accounting could catch up. So it was like that. But now it seems like every year there was a huge leap in production, in materials, in many kind of scientific engineering advancements. And then accounting had to catch up quicker. And accounting couldn't catch up. So that's why they say now we need to write about management control. We need to kind of train new accountants to be able to catch up with the advancements in technology. So that is when these theoretical perspectives kind of gain relevance. Before that, it was not necessary. It was too organic, it was too simple. But until here, it was necessary to develop kind of accounting as a discipline. And the first discipline that emerged from accounting was management accounting or management control. As you can see, the first thing I said at the beginning, this kind of clarification, I just keep making the same mistake because I keep kind of saying management accounting and management control. But remember, for the purpose of this lecture, we conceptualize management control and management accounting as the same. And finally, when I was preparing this lecture, I was reading a very old journal in accounting, I think from 1931, to read what they were discussing at that time. And I found this article on accounting in Mexico, and actually is from a practitioner. So it kind of is evidence of what I say, like practitioners realize about the importance of developing accounting mechanisms and accounting systems in a more systematic, more rigorous way to make it an academic discipline in order to catch up with the advancements of technology. That was what triggered accounting as a discipline right now. So I will stop this first video in here, and then in the next videos, we will focus on the theoretical perspective.